I hope people, as they see BeefArena getting developing, I hope people see the way that I work and see, how I work through flaws. And, I'm not just kind of throwing crap out there, but I am trying to throw something out there so I can get feedback on it.
Hello, everyone. I'm John Aljets, and today we are doing another episode of our developer commentary. And I'm so excited because we get to talk to Matthew Zinke one more time for BeefArena. I am so excited that we are finally at release for this game. I talked to you the first time over a year ago about this game and been following along this whole time. And now here we are. We're at the final release build. Matt, how are you feeling coming down to release day?
I'm feeling pretty good, actually. I've taken the game even a little further than I thought, so I'm feeling pretty good about things. I've got a few bugs that I'm still chasing down, a few things to fix here in this last week, but things are looking pretty good. The game is in a very, very close to finished state. So there's a few levels that need to be added, and I've got a couple boss fights to do and some story stuff. But a lot of the most of the heavy lifting has already been done. I'm just kind of pulling together work that I've already put together and integrating it into the final thing, and making sure that it's bug free and that it's fun and easy to play with.
By the time that the audience is watching this, all of that stuff, I presume, will probably be already handled. So if we're going to be playing the game a little bit, Matt's going to be playing it, and we're going to be talking through it, doing the usual developer commentary stuff. If you like what you're seeing, I will have a link to the Steam page down below. And as of this video being posted, the game's out. So you can go check it out. We're either posting this on release day or one of the couple of days after. So it's out. Go ahead, go and grab it and play it. But with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump in and let's take a look at the game as it is.
All right. So I've cleared all the achievements. So this is kind of starting from ground one, what somebody's going to see when they start the game. So there's a tutorial. So we go through the controls a little bit. And so you get to, you just jump right into the game. There's no dialogue to move through. Yeah. Yeah, that was one of those things that I added where I was like, oh, this is turning into something bigger than I thought. We've got some new dialogue stuff that just got added in the last week, so I'm really excited about all of that. You get a little bit of a playground here to kind of just play with the controls, get a feel for it. What does it feel like? You can even see what happens if you wait long enough.
The wildest thing to me...
See if there's a stake. The stakes turn into flies.
The wildest thing to me right now, watching this, is remembering where this game was when I first saw it back at Portland Retro 2024 and seeing just how much it has changed and improves, and especially when it comes to the graphics. The pixel art is next level. I love specifically the profile picture in the menu here. Were you doing the art, or did you? I can't remember if we talked about if you brought in pixel artists to help out, or if it is you.
No, yeah, all this is me. So yeah, it was definitely. I have grown tremendously as a pixel artist, and it warms my heart to hear me say that you like it. Because like 2 years ago when I first started this, I had some assets. I had some assets put together and just like some experimental stuff, and I was thinking, we'll see what I do, and we'll see how my art comes together. But I was totally prepared at some point to have to hire an artist, and that never happened. I just kept working on the game, kept improving things incrementally, and it started out from this really, I don't even remember what the original resolution is, but it was low, and then over time is built up, and I'm way better at pixel art than I was 2 years ago. That's been a huge skill that I've gained through development here. So
I don't think I remember any of the card stuff.
The poker cards were kind of in there as an idea, but wasn't like they were kind of in there as an idea, but they weren't like a huge thing yet. It was sort of like I wasn't sure what to do with them about like score and stuff like that, but they've turned into You kind of get items through collecting poker cards, and then the better hands you get, the better items you get. So this is kind of, there's really no tutorial on it. This is sort of one of those discover it things.
Mm.
So but the first screen that you get after the tutorial is you meet Trixie here. So he's another character that you get to play in the game. So when you're doing co-op, it's nice to have multiple characters to play, so you don't look so that everybody doesn't look the same. So Trixie gives you a little bit of we get a little bit of an introduction between these two. Trixie expected Ash to be here much earlier. And, Ash is kind of just, he's just walking around with reckless abandon. He's like, he's just trying to help anybody he can. So he's not paying attention to even what circumstances they're in. So she's pretty pissed, and she's actually pretty in control too. So she works for Megacorp, and she's a scientist, and, she's got to collect samples from the field because she's trying to figure out, what's going on, what's this alien technology all about, and, what's causing all these cattle to mutate. And so she's saying, hey, that's your job. You gotta take me around and protect me while I'm collecting data.
This is much deeper lore than I would expect about a game about blowing up cows.
It's interesting. So I think that's kind of a big, like the game evolved a lot, like where it started, my idea was to make, 80 screens, and you just, run through them arcade level style, like a Bubble Bobble or Snow Brothers. And that was going to be the game. And I think that when I got further in development, especially around the time of the con, people were really liking what I'd put together. It was really just kind of a weapons demo at that point. And we had, a few levels and a few different, I had a few different, I had some biomes started, like some different graphics, but a lot of the level layouts were pretty much the same. A lot of recycled stuff there. And everything was like kill 10 steaks, collect 10 steaks, collect 25 steaks, whatever. I did a play test on Twitch with one of those, one of the software dev, game dev guys, and he was doing a play test, and he got into it, and he's like, it kind of feels like it's kind of samey, and I was feeling that same thing. It was like the same thing over and over and over. So this was I really started to think about like the tempo of the game. This wasn't just, originally it was going to be 10 levels and a boss, 10 levels and a boss, just like pretty much like Snow Brothers, which was, I don't know. You don't see much of Snow Brothers in the game anymore. But when it first started, you get the speed upgrades and stuff. That was totally inspired by Snow Brothers, and that feeling of, dominating in Snow Brothers and having, max speed and max upgrades, and then losing it all, and then feeling what you had lost. And, the single screen idea all came out of that. So, yeah, originally I just kind of wanted to copy Snow Brothers.
And I think if anything, that kind of just shows how important prototyping is in game development. Because I mean, like, you had an idea for a game, and you executed on the idea, but then through feedback and stuff, you were able to sort of like refine it, and it took you into a different direction than maybe you initially intended.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm a huge fan of, you hear a lot of these guys that are, or anybody, guys and gals, talking about doing game design documents and this and that. And I mean, I think there's a lot of value, and there can be value in that stuff, especially if you have a lot of ideas. If you're, sometimes if I have a lot of ideas coming to me, and I'll write them down, and I will get them into, a documented form. But as a solo developer, it's not quite as important that I communicate my ideas. Oh man, this guy's a little tough. So as a game developer, as a solo developer, it's not quite as important that I communicate my ideas. I can do a lot on my own. And I think this is actually like the power that like solo developers have, is that we can just work off of prototypes, and at any time, take that prototype and turn it into something a little bigger, and just keep adding features to it. And we don't have to collaborate with a team and, schedule a meeting to see if, that prototype is appealing to the rest of the team. So, yeah,
I'm a big proponent of game design documents. It's something that's big, but then again, it's also like, that's how my brain works. Having something written out helps me think through things. But I do know that like a lot of solo devs don't even bother with it.
Well, and I think that's good, and I think you're totally right. Like when I'm really thinking through things, writing it down really helps to be able to kind of have something on paper that's sort of like my RAM, and I don't have to keep everything in my head or like maybe oh, I forgot about something that I was just thinking about. But I do a lot of that in code too, and so
Mm.
and that's where I start with a prototype and I say, okay, what's this idea I want to work on? If it's simple enough, why start a document? Why not just go and directly implement and see what you can do in an evening? And then based off what you can do in an evening, then, I think that helps, it helps give you an idea of like, oh, I did that, or, oh, that, I ran into some problem that was way harder than I thought it would be. That kind of thing. So like prototyping, I think really it allows you to fail fast. And, before you even get to a document, so much of the game is about how it feels. You could describe Diablo, but if Diablo wasn't built exactly the way it was built, then it wouldn't feel that way.
Yeah.
And so getting a prototype and really working off a prototype, I feel like gives me more confidence that I've, got something that's fun and that it's tangible.
So let's talk a little bit about the gameplay loop for this game. Because as we were pointing out, it's your single screen kind of arena shooter sort of thing. Obviously, like fast-paced action and things like that is the key. Was there anything that as you were designing, you sort of realized like, oh, it has to be like this, like sort of your core tenets of design for the gameplay?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with tempo.
Mm.
So the tempo of the game. So like talking about what I had at the expo last year, I had kind of one level type, and you didn't really get any power ups. You got some new weapons while you were out, and so there wasn't really any sense of build up. So it was basically like you kind of get your weapons, and if you try and play, and if you got a good weapon, you'd have fun with it, and that was about it. And the levels were all pretty similar. I think there was some boss levels in there. So I think what it was like you'd play 10 levels or 8 levels and then play a boss or something like that. So it ended up kind of feeling really repetitive. And this was, I alluded to this earlier talking about, the feedback I got that it felt samey, which was kind of like, yeah, you were just kind of doing the same thing over and over. And I was like, okay, there's something fun here. There's like action but it needed a little bit more variation from just like this simple, play some levels and fight a boss, play some levels and fight a boss. And so where I got from that was I started actually varying up the levels a little bit. So now you've got some levels that, the point is to collect stakes. You've got some levels where you just need to clear a wave of cows. You've got some levels where there's, like kind of a big elite enemy that you have to kill. And then, we've got the abduction levels, like where I just was. And then I've got, some other levels in there too. So, there's like loot rooms where there's like no enemies, but just a bunch of stakes to grab up. So, kind of like those levels in Mario where, you're just running around and grabbing a bunch of coins up or something like that. There's stuff like that. And it's getting more complicated. I've got more screens with, in the last couple of weeks, we've added these character unlocks and stuff. So there's, more stuff to like discover and possibilities for like these extra screens to pop up here and there, which I think like, if you look at some of these roguelikes like Binding of Isaac or like Dead Cells, I think one of the most fun aspects of those is, finding some surprise in a level. And, having played a level of like, maybe, 20 or 30 times and then, getting to some new room you haven't ever seen before. Stuff like that. All right. So now things are heating up a little bit. We've got, some cows, but then we've also got this other cow that's stolen a tractor, and that guy's super annoying. And so it's tempting to go rush up to this outhouse and get your item, but then the first run of that tractor will just mow you down. So don't fall for that trick. I'm just baiting you into dying. I fall for it all the time, and I made it. Oh, here we go. Ooh. Well, I got hit, but luckily I had a mushroom.
What's your process for enemy design?
Sometimes some of it, depending on the enemies, some of these have been really ad hoc. Originally when this first started, it was just like, okay, you got some cows. and they need to move left and right, and they need to move through the screen. So like all it was, you know, cows that were, you know, on rails and moving around and stuff. And then I started looking at other games and stuff. I'm like, well, I want more than just like these cows. And I really like, I love, you know, bullet hells and shoot 'em ups. And so I wanted to get some of those, you know, kind of circular bullet patterns into the game. And so then I kind of started doing that with the silo. So I introduced the silo as kind of the vehicle for, you know, doing spirally bullet patterns. And then what I found out was that spirally bullet patterns are really hard to avoid in a platformer.
Yeah.
And which is fine, but I wasn't able to get them as dense as I wanted very easily. Like whereas like I'd done like shoot 'em ups before, and I was just able to kind of like spray bullets and make this nice dense bullet pattern that looked nice, and it was still, you know, kind of playable. It's a little bit harder with this, so I have to design those a little bit more intentionally. So the patterns that are in there right now are they're not very dense at all, and there's become a lot more focus then on stuff like bullets that seek you out, which we'll see in the boss at the end of this level, and some other things. So I think a lot of it, I kind of approach it from, okay, well, this started where I'm kind of like looking at somebody else's game and saying, okay, let's do some bare minimum here and get something going so I can have a screen where I can shoot guns. And from there, then it's like, okay, how to make this more interesting. And then I'm always going back to look at Mega Man, and I'm always looking at what Mega Man has done, because, you know, it's just an encyclopedia of different ways that you can make enemies move around the screen, different ways that they can respond to you. There's just tons and tons and tons of good stuff there for, you know, kind of this. So has a lot of that made it into the game? I think so, but I don't know that it's immediately recognizable. There's certain things that started with a Mega Man idea and then turned into something else, because, you know, as I was coding them, this other behavior came up, and I was like, oh, that's fun to mess with. So like I wanted to do, like, I was going to do some of those, like the little hard hat dudes in Mega Man that, you know, when you get close to them,
Yeah.
you know, I was going to do some of those, and I kind of got started on that, but I never finished, and got distracted by kind of other enemies. And then I sort of got to a point with this where I realized there's a lot of, there's a lot of mileage you can get from not thinking too hard. So like, you know, so being able to like play some of the same enemies in like different layouts, that's been fun. So I don't know, my enemy design, I don't think has been as intentional or as, you know, definitely not as inspired as Mega Man games. But I think that a lot of times that's where I'm looking first. And then I come up with something that's fun to play. And if it matched the inspiration, that's great. If not, then that's okay too. But you'll definitely see, like, I'm starting to think about it now. Like, there's definitely one fight in particular that's like very obviously, like, if you've played Mega Man 2, you know what I'm, you know what the fight's about. And then also like, there's, I don't remember what I was going to say there. I just kind of trailed off. I'm just rambling now, I guess. But
well, I would say that, like, you know, oftentimes I feel like when it comes to development, people put a lot of weight on originality in design, and originality is very important, but sometimes it's also a totally valid idea to just go like, oh, I liked this thing from a game, I'm going to try to like replicate that to a degree. Pulling influence is a very, very powerful tool.
Yeah, well, and I think, like, you know, there's certain things, like, you know, you got these guys running on screen, and there's only so many things you can do. And, you know, you can make them move, you can make them shoot, you can make them jump on you, you can do all sorts of more elaborate animations. But a lot of times, like, the simple stuff, and combining the simple stuff it can be the most powerful and most effective. And a lot of those old games, they're just, that's the music theory, that's the game theory, that's like, these are some of the simplest patterns you can do with these geometries. And, those are the building blocks. And, what do you do from there? There's so many combinations and so many possibilities and so many different ways to mix these mechanics that, there's originality in every implementation.
you have some like you have what I feel like are sort of the standard weapons that everyone kind of expects from this sort of game. You know, your pistols, your shotguns, your Tommy guns. But then you also have some like weird out there weapons, like again the lasso we mentioned, and you have a few others that are just sort of weird and a little bit bizarre. How did you actually like go about coming up with specific weapons, and how did you find introducing the more outlandish ones impacted maybe the way that you think about the more standard ones?
Well, I think definitely the standard one started from, the pistol in this game. It's not a Mega Man pistol, but it kind of started from that place. And then, you go, okay, so like, what are it's like, like you say, I've got the weapons you expect. And that was kind of where I started from, was what are the weapons you expect? So it's like the rocket launcher, the grenade launcher, the Tommy gun, the chain, the minigun. Kind of like the Quake weapons, I guess, is like kind of how I was looking at them originally. And the shotgun's in there, and there's an automatic, there's a rifle. So anyway, I got these weapons going, but then it's like I don't want to end up like something that bugs me about like Counter-Strike in particular. And if you love Counter-Strike, or if anybody watching loves Counter-Strike, I'm not, all the weapons are really. They're really. I mean, it's supposed to be. It's got a lot of realism, right? So every weapon is kind of like just like a gun that fires, and some of them fire a little faster, some of them do a little more damage, like something like that. I really wanted to avoid that, and I wanted every weapon to have more of that kind of Mega Man quality of like, I want it to be a little normal. I want some normal weapons, some just like some run of the mill, like old reliables. But I also wanted a lot of wacky weapons, and I wanted some different ways to play the game. And there was, as I was thinking about, what does progression look like in this game? I had a bunch of different ideas for like combining weapons, or like maybe trying to take bullets from one weapon and putting them into the gun of another. Like think if you were shooting a Tommy gun full of rockets or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and I'm still thinking about stuff like that, but I think where I got was I've got these weapon behaviors. And from the initial ones, like the obvious ones, then I just started messing with the properties and messing with things. And I was like, what if it did this? And the lasso originally was like, well, I need a boomerang. I need some kind of boomerang weapon. And then worked on the lasso, and I was messing around, and I was like, what could I do for a rope? And when I figured the rope out for the lasso, and I got it doing the full boomerang thing, I was like, okay, this is cherry. This is good. This is something fun. This is cool. And so, it kind of just comes from experimentation. And, there's probably, for every weapon in here, I probably went through, 10 iterations of slightly different things, which, I could get real lazy and just add those as whole new weapons. But, I don't want to get into, now I haven't actually played Enter the Gungeon, but from what I understand, they have like 200 weapons or something like that now. And I don't exactly know how their weapon stuff works, but I have heard people complain that, some of the weapons are just like more powerful versions of another weapon or something like that. And I really want to avoid that kind of thing. If you're going to build power with a certain type of weapon style, pick the weapon you like and then go, build items on top of it. That's kind of the attitude here.
So it's all about the way that you choose to build out your item set, as opposed to necessarily like, just getting a new gun.
Yeah, if you're going for that big damage, definitely. And then there's some guns. I mean, some guns are out of the box more powerful than others, and some scale differently with weapons or with items. So like you see some of the more powerful out of the box weapons pop up near the end of the game. So in the demo, all the weapons were unlocked. So there was some chance that you could see any weapon in the game. Some of the weapons have improved a little bit versus what's in the demo right now, but or they've actually improved a lot. There's like the charge weapons in particular feel a lot better now than they did 3 months ago. But now the way it works is you have to find the weapon in the game before it shows up in your locker. So once you find the weapon in the game, you get the achievement for it. It'll show up in your locker, and then you can potentially get it. So if you want to start the game with, these high powered weapons like the railgun, you have to get far enough in the game for that to drop naturally at least once. So there's a little more motivation to, playing through and you know, getting further in the game.
Now, we spoke a little bit before the recording started about Steam Deck compatibility, because I mentioned that like this feels to me like a game that I want to play on Steam Deck. It's sort of like how Vampire Survivor is very much a pick up and play kind of experience. Is that something that was important to you during development? Like, did you think about Steam Deck compatibility?
Yeah, Steam Deck was definitely Steam Deck was definitely in mind from the beginning of development here. I think that I some people may or may not know. I can't remember if we even talked about this in the other interview, but the original game was this little kind of just this single screen, shooter game with really cheesy weapons that I made to entertain my coworkers. And a few of them were like, "Oh man, this would be great on Steam Deck." And it took me a few years, but I have eventually, I have gotten to the point now that I'm actually making this into something bigger. And yeah, so Steam Deck was definitely something that was from day one something that I was thinking about, and definitely like, the original resolution for the game. So the game's in a widescreen resolution now, which fits the Steam Deck better. But the original resolution for the game was actually the resolution for the Game Boy Advance. And I was really kind of going for that kind of Game Boy Advance level of, graphics and stuff. And I think I've done an okay job with that. But I do think that like definitely, Steam Deck, moving it into widescreen, it looks beautiful on the Steam Deck, by the way. Like, and so every time that I upload a new playtest or I upload the demo, the first place I go to go test that everything is in order is, I go pull out my Steam Deck and play through it.
I feel like that is something that indie developers should pay more mind to. I almost feel like if you're releasing a game on Steam in 2025, it should absolutely 100% be Steam Deck compatible as much as humanly possible. Because so many people nowadays, that's like their go-to system when it comes to PC gaming. And especially now that we have like the Steam box or whatever the hell it's called that they just announced a couple of days ago is going to be also using Steam OS.
Dude, that
I
thing
think
looks
that
awesome.
what was it that I've saw somebody on Blue Sky? They called it the Gabe Cube, and now that's all I want to call it.
That's awesome.
They need to hurry up and release the price on that already, just so that I know what I'm saving for. Although, as excited as I am for that thing, I'm almost more excited for the new VR headset. Just because like I am a VR person, which is, there's not very many of us. There's dozens of us, as it were. So we've been changing biomes here. We went from like a wooded forest. Well, we went from like a plains to like a wooded foresty area to now we're kind of in like an open, like rockier wheat field sort of vibe. How did you go about deciding upon the actual settings that players are going to be finding themselves blowing up bovines in?
Well, definitely farm settings were natural. So, I had like definitely like the first level was kind of like it's like this grassy level. I think that came from just like, Mario or something, like thinking about levels in Mario and some of the grassier ones there. I feel like that's kind of like the default. You make something with grass in it. And then that turned into Grassy Gulch, of course. And then this was, the wheat fields. I definitely knew, like, I'm in Eastern Washington, growing up on the Palouse and everything, like definitely had this image of like these like, rolling hilly wheat fields that I wanted to like get in there somehow. I'm not sure that this level is exactly bringing up images of the Palouse in people's heads, but it's, that was kind of where my score screen is broken. That's very disappointing because there's a comprehensive stat screen that's, so I have to figure out what's going on there. But yeah, so, and I kind of thought about like the, different farm settings, and then there's some settings later on that lead to some, they're kind of lore related. It was either related to aliens or related to farms. And then a lot of the alien lore comes from like movies and things. So
Yeah.
we can play different characters now. So let's play Strix this time. So yeah, there's the biomes are all kind of, they're either alien, they either came from, my favorite alien movies. There was some inspiration there, or Or yeah, like farm stuff, like where's the barn go?
Get back to the little details. I know that I struggle focusing way too much on. Oops, I hit my microphone. I struggle focusing on them way too much. Like for instance, when I'm working on a Doom level, I'll often find myself sitting there. I'll be working on a room or whatever, and I'll be like, "Oh, should I push this wall like a unit forward or a unit back? Like, will it look better? Like, which way do I go?" And like, it's the kind of thing that like me and maybe one other detail oriented nerd are going to notice if I make a change. So why am I spending my time with it? But that's why when I make these doom levels that take like 3 minutes to beat take me like 30 hours to build. It's like some insanely long time to do these things. It's just because I get so in my own head about things.
Yeah, see, and I err on the other side of wanting to show off work too early. So like I want to show somebody off and be like, "Hey, check this out." And I'm hoping that they can see the potential in it, which, a
Yeah.
lot of times people are just like, "Oh, that's nice." And so the thing is then I'll put stuff out too early, and then I'll get the reaction from somebody and it's not as good as I wanted or whatever, and then I'll be like, "Oh, I need to add details." And so it's like then I just keep kind of iterating. So I've kind of got this like startup mentality where I kind of try to I show stuff off very early, and then respond to the feedback as quick as I can.
Meanwhile, like again, going back to Doom levels, I've made dozens of them, and I think I've only publicly released 4 of them because I'm just like, I won't release until it's perfect, and then it's never perfect. And it's the same with game projects.
Yeah, and most people, definitely anybody who's played the demo, like knows that I sometimes struggle is that I hope people as they see BeefArena getting developing, I hope people will see the way that I work and see how I work through flaws. And I'm not just kind of throwing crap out there, but I am trying to throw something out there so I can get feedback on it. And so sometimes it's a little rough, but I think it might not have the same impact as if I don't even know. But BeefArena is going to be pretty cool. Like it's already like in the last couple of weeks, I've seen it like level up another level, which I didn't expect to happen so close to launch. And so I think what people will see is like I will keep working and hammering out these details, and they'll all add up. I think though what I tend to do is I show off stuff too early, and then it doesn't have enough details in it most of the time, and I'm struggling to find the details, and I'm sitting here trying to get some major game system working that I think it would take anybody else a week or two to write it, and I've got some genius idea where it's only going to take me 2 nights or something like that. And so then I get into that, and then where I lose time is, of course, it doesn't take me 2 nights. It takes me 2 weeks, just like everybody else. And and then that whole 2 weeks, I'm like, oh, I thought I could do this in 2 nights. Why? And I'm trying to do it fast, and so I end up working myself to death sometimes in those 2 weeks getting features out. But that's where I'm at, is I'm always looking at like these big things. And so sometimes the details escape me a little bit, but over time, like all of the levels, the Grassy Gulch levels have all changed. Every time I play them, I notice something new and then I go up and fix it. So even though I'm not obsessed, I don't personally obsess over it when I'm making them. And I think this is maybe just a time management habit that I've learned. Is I'll do a little work on something, and then I try and be like, well, this is just one level, this is just one detail. Let's get the big thing going.
Well, what is the saying? Perfect is the enemy of good.
Definitely.
Like that?
Yeah, perfect is the enemy of good enough. Yeah.
It's like at a certain point you just have to, it's better to have something released than it is to, sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, and that was the whole point with BeefArena. Like my whole goal here was not to make money. Well, I mean, I'd like to make money. I'd like to sell some copies of the game. But my whole goal here was really in this. This is the first time I've released the game on Steam. I want to do it again, and so I'm getting a sense of what it takes to do that, what it takes to promote your work, all of that stuff. Definitely have been light on the promotional touch this time around. Like we were talking about it at PRGE. I wasn't announcing games. I wasn't telling people about this and that, but. With future games, I'm going to be doing a lot more of promotional cadence and trying to kind of, set up different milestones, in announcing it and all of this. Oh, I'm just getting just destroyed. We
Just
got to a
getting
new
robbed.
biome, so we're in the city now.
Yeah,
Didn't
this is the
unlock
first time. This is the first time that I'm seeing the city. Like that's exciting. I know that we've talked about it a couple of times, and I'm gonna keep bringing it up every time. What's next? As far as the next game, we've talked a little bit about a couple ideas. We talked about it during the development chat where you had the idea for like a Metroidvania map rando kind of thing, and then when we spoke at PRGE this year, you mentioned that you had been playing around with like an ogre battle, sort of like tactical kind of thing. Have you given more thought in the like month since Portland Retro to what is exciting you the most enough to make a next game?
Yeah. So let's see. So yeah. So definitely this kind of Super Metroid project. Something is going to happen there, and I don't have. I guess I'm not totally prepared to. I am really bummed about the lack of stats here. That's a bummer. But anyway, um, yeah. So the the Super Metroid one, that's going to take a little bit longer. I don't think I'm going to rush right into that. I think with BeefArena, like this last push, this last little crunch before release, has really inspired me in a lot of ways to keep going and developing more. We talked in an earlier interview. We talked about I was going to see where it was at when it releases, and then 3 months later reassess. I'm in a much more engaged place with that right now, where I'm kind of like, okay, well, release is coming next week. I know that I'm hoping that I'll get an influx of new people playing the game, and old friends reporting bugs and all of that stuff. So definitely hoping, definitely want people to join the Discord and let me know how you feel about the game. Please, I'm very approachable. Let me know any bugs you find. I will absolutely address them, and everything that all the feedback I get from the community and other players and other game devs and all of that just builds up to make the game better. So my immediate plan for the next couple months is to keep going on BeefArena. I'm working on another game called Flightmare 2084, and that's based off of. There's probably like 12 people that know about this game Flightmare from it was on DOS. It came out in 1984, and it was kind of this early attempt at doing 3D gameplay, but they had like 2 views of your character, and it was a little bit weird, but I had a lot of fun with that game, and I'm making kind of like an updated version that I've putting it on itch. I started it a couple months ago and put a week into it. Like back during Next Fest, I was doing a lot of promotional stuff, and I was kind of messing with Lua and Love 2D, which is the engine that Balatro was made in. And I came up with this Flightmare. So it's basically like you're flying a plane. There's this overworld view. It's kind of similar to Ogre Battle in a way, where like you've got a plane and you're flying through a map, and there's these enemies that you got to fight, and then it zooms into like a shoot 'em up level where you've got motorcycles that you're trying to kill and some other planes, and you have to kind of it's a top down, but I'm trying to basically make it so there's sort of like 2 layers. So there's sort of some 3D ness to it, but it's like more like an arcade 3D. So it's instead of having like a fully third dimension, it's more like you have layers. So I'm working on that. It's also got like a storyline attached to it that's completely new. That's not from the original game. That's kind of based off of like kind of like this sort of inspired by like Akira Motorcycle Gang type of thing. And kind of very anime inspired. So I'm not going to work too much on that one. That should come out. Like there should be a finished version of that on itch, like just a free game, something to 30 minutes, an hour of gameplay, that kind of thing. That should be out, somewhere in January, something like that, early next year. As far as I get on it, through all that time, I'm going to be, working on Beef. I have a plan for the first BeefArena update. So sometime in January, early February, there's going to be an update for BeefArena. So, starting off, there's a stake leaderboard. So go out and get as many stakes as you can possibly get and see how high you can rank on that leaderboard. And I don't even know how many stakes is possible. If you get through the game, like, you saw me play it. I got into the 3rd biome once, and I'm getting better at it. I've definitely had runs where I've gotten further, but I haven't beaten it yet. So I don't even know how many stakes are possible. So that should be, that'll be interesting to see, when the competition for stakes really ramps up, where the game goes from there. And then in the next update, we're going to add a leaderboard for kills. So playing a game for most kills is a little bit different than playing for stakes. And there's a lot of ways. There's a lot of things you can do. It's not just going from level to level, and you can sit in levels for a long time. And so
just really farm it.
Whole different game style to it. So the next update is going to be focused more on objectives that are related to these kill achievements, or killing achievements and stuff. Is getting most kills or doing more damage. So some kind of new objective, some kind of new achievements to get something like that. That's what's in the work for early next year, and then we'll see where BeefArena goes after that. If I've got lots of people playing, or if there's rising interest. I haven't done a ton of promotion for this yet, so I'm thinking, as I do more promotion and do more outreach with influencers and gamers, I'm hoping to build a little bit bigger community, and we'll see where it's at. If it's growing and it's building up, halfway through next year, maybe updates to BeefArena, free updates become more of a regular thing. If it sort of plateaus, if it sort of is what it is, then it'll be there. And when people play and they come talk to me about it and they want new features or stuff like that, I'm definitely open to pulling that out. I love this game. Honestly, I love it. It's I know it's my game, and it's maybe vain to say that, but narcissistic. But it's turned into something that I really enjoy playing. I have found myself getting addicted to this game. This is the first game I've ever made where it's gotten to this level. Where I feel like I'm playing something that's got a lot of weight to it. So I want to keep working on it, and I've got lots of ideas for it. And but in the immediate future, Flightmare, expect that early next year. Something on itch.io. So my Blue Sky, definitely posted on that. There's already screenshots of Flightmare on my Blue Sky if you're interested in what I'm talking about.
Well, if you would like to experience the lore of BeefArena, or just shut off your brain and blow up cows, which I think is totally a valid way to approach it, you can go down in the description and click the link to go to BeefArena's Steam page, and you can get it today and play it. I highly recommend it. I am a big fan of everything I've played, and I am super, super excited that it is finally hitting release. Matthew, thank you so much for doing this. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Always a great time. And I look forward to doing this again in the future with whatever game that we want to talk about next.
Definitely. Well, thanks for having me, man. And I'm looking forward to future gaming sessions as well.
So as I said, get down there in the description, check that out. And until next time, I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you later.